Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's good to see you back here today. I'm imagining that I'm seeing your smiling faces there, and I'm hoping that you're all doing well and staying safe and following all the protocol that we've all been told to follow during these somewhat difficult times. I know that keeping a healthy, happy attitude these days is somewhat of a struggle for some people. And so just really want to encourage everybody to just keep it up because it's so important. When I woke up this morning, the thought that came to mind was what Edwene Gaines used to say whenever she started a workshop that she was giving. I'm on top of the world. I've got money in the bank and everybody loves me. And I laughed out loud when that thought went through my mind again because it's such an uplifting thing. And so I just encourage you all this morning, when I say, how are you? To say, I'm on top of the world. I got money in the bank and everybody loves me. And say it again because it is something that just kind of lifts the energy up and gets us going. So let's remember that and perhaps start each day with that. Wake up in the morning, good morning, God, and let God know how you're doing today and know that's reciprocated back to you. The title of my talk today is Freedom from Fear. And goodness knows there's lots of fear out there these days, of all different kinds, but certainly people are really fearful about either getting sick themselves or having their family getting sick. And I started thinking about how we can move beyond that. But I also was questioning, where does it come from? Where do we learn about fear? I mean, certainly there are times when we may experience some danger in our lives where, it's human nature. It's that flight or fight instinct. But but there are other things that are just kind of learned. I think when we're little children, when we're warned about things that we shouldn't do because something bad might happen to us. And some of those things we do have to learn, but the question is, do we really need to feel fear around it? I was remembering when I was 3 years old, I was visiting my grandparents, and my mother and grandmother were sitting in the kitchen sewing cushions, and my grandfather took me down to this root cellar that was beneath the house. It was a big room with a dirt floor, and it's where they stored all of their garden vegetables in the wintertime. And also the walls were lined with shelves where my grandmother's preserves were sitting. She would spend most of the summer canning fruit and vegetables and getting everything lined up on the shelf for winter, making homemade jam and all those wonderful things that I have memories about. Anyway, what I had forgotten, or what I didn't really know about as a little child, was that there were mice in that basement. And when my grandfather took me down into the cellar, he took a mouse out of a trap, a dead mouse, and handed it to me by the tail and said, "Take this up to your mom and your grandmother." Well, not knowing anything about this, not knowing that I perhaps shouldn't be doing this, I went up the stairs and he followed me, and I was holding the mouse by the tail and dangling it in front of my mother and grandmother, who leapt out of their chairs, dropped the cushions, pulled their skirts up around their necks, and went running out the door screaming. Well, I couldn't figure out what happened. And my grandfather was standing beside me laughing, and he had this big belly and it was just shaking up and down. And and to me it was such an amazing thing. I was laughing right there with him. And I realized that had I been upstairs with my mom and my grandmother, and he had come up with the mouse in his hand and they'd started screaming, I would have been screaming too. And I would have gone running out of the house with them. So I realized that that was kind of a learned thing for me. And I think what I learned and what I'm really grateful for is that I shouldn't be afraid of the little things. I wasn't afraid of critters as I was growing up. And I really credit my grandfather with that. Not afraid of mice, not afraid of any of those kinds of things. But they're little things. And there are big things that I have had some fear around in my lifetime. It's human nature. We all do. And right now we're living in a time where there's something really big going on. There's something that is scaring a lot of people. We can't say that this virus is a little thing. It's really doing a lot of damage throughout the world. A lot of people are dying. And so how do we stay in a place where we're hopeful? How do we stay in a place where we're not fearful? How do we get out of that? And I think first of all, we need to realize that there's so much help around us and there's so much hope. First of all, look at all of those people who are on the front lines, the doctors, the nurses, all of the caregivers who are just out there, the tens of thousands of them who came out of retirement to look after people, the work that our government is doing to see that people are fed, to see that they have help with their rent. We have many, many blessings to count along the way. There are many individuals who are giving us hope, who are giving us information, because having the information is really important right now. We need to be really grateful for that. And there are some individuals who are very famous who are putting information out that is really inspiring. I read many days ago that Bill Gates in 1915 had predicted an epidemic like this. He'd said that too much money was being put into warfare, and not enough being put into science, into the kinds of things that could prevent this kind of epidemic, because he said this would be the next war that we would be fighting. This would be the next great epidemic, and something needed to be done about it then, and nothing was done about it, and here we are. And he recently sent something out by email, which someone forwarded to me, that really touched me in a deep way and really made me think about a lot of things. And because of that, I'd like to share it with you this morning. I have a copy of it here, and I learned things about Bill Gates from this, things that I didn't know. I don't know why, but I guess I just didn't know that much about him. Just that he was a multi-gazillionaire and made his money from Microsoft, and I know that he does good works around the world. But this really, really inspired me a lot, so I want to share it with you. What is the corona COVID-19 virus really teaching us? Interesting thought. What is it teaching us? And he says, I'm a strong believer that there is a spiritual purpose behind everything that happens, whether that's what we perceive as being good or perceive as being bad. I didn't know that Bill Gates had that spiritual nature. So that really intrigued me as I began to read this. He says, it's reminding us that we're all equal, regardless of our culture, our religion, our occupation, financial situation, or how famous we are. This disease treats us all equally. Perhaps we should too. If you don't believe me, just ask Tom Hanks. You probably all know that Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, his wife, are quarantined in Australia, where they both have this virus. And that's why he references it this way. And he says it's reminding us that we're all connected, and something that affects one person has an effect on another. It's reminding us that the false borders that we've put up have little value, as this virus does not need a passport. Good thought. It's reminding us by oppressing us for a short time of those in this world whose whole life is spent in oppression. It's reminding us of how precious our health is and how we've moved to neglect it. We've been eating poorly. We've been eating manufactured food that isn't good for us and drinking water that's filled with chemicals, and more chemicals. If we don't look after our health, we will, of course, get sick. It's reminding us of the shortness of life and of what is most important for us to do, which is to help each other, especially those who are old and those who are sick. If we don't look after our health, we'll get sick. It's reminding us of how the materialistic part of our society has not done us any good at all. It's how we've become when in times of difficulty we remember that it's essential that we need food and water and medicine, as opposed to the luxuries that we sometimes unnecessarily give value to. It's reminding us of how important our family and home life is, and how much we've neglected this. It is forcing us back into our houses so we can rebuild them into a home and to strengthen our family unit. It's reminding us to keep our egos in check. It's reminding us that no matter how great we think we are, or how great others think they are, a virus can bring our world to a standstill. It's reminding us that the power of free will is in our hands. We can choose to cooperate and help each other, to share, to give, to help and support each other, or we can choose to be selfish, to hoard, to look after only ourselves. Indeed, it is difficulties that bring out our true colors. It's reminding us that we can be patient, or we can panic. We can either understand that this type of situation has happened many times before in history, and it will pass, or we can panic and see it as the end of the world and consequently cause ourselves more harm than good. It's reminding us that this can either be an end or a new beginning. This can be a time of reflection and understanding, where we all learn from our mistakes, or it can be the start of a cycle which will continue until we finally learn the lesson that we were meant to learn. It's reminding us that this earth is sick. It's reminding us that we need to look at the rate of deforestation just as urgently as we look at the speed at which toilet rolls are disappearing off the shelves. We are sick because because Mother Earth is sick. It's reminding us that after every difficulty, there is always ease. Life is cyclical, and this is just a phase in this great cycle. We do not need to panic. This too shall pass. Whereas many see the COVID-19 virus as a great disaster, I prefer to see it as a great corrector. It is sent to remind us of the important lessons that we seem to have forgotten, and it's up to us if we will learn them or not. Now, isn't there a lot of wisdom in that? I really, really appreciate it, and I think it's something that is really worth taking stock of, worth focusing upon, each of those ideas, because we're living in a time where people are frightened. We're living in a time where we just don't know exactly what the immediate future holds for us. And so we need to be staying positive during these times. We need to be doing things that are uplifting. We need to be reminding ourselves that this is not the end of the world. We need to be reminding ourselves of the personal power that each one of us has, that we were born with it, and that we can use this, and we can use it all the time, no matter where we are or what we're doing. And we can be grateful for all of those people right now who are stepping up to help those who are so disadvantaged in this world. And we can be so grateful that we have the information that we need to stay healthy. And so I really implore everybody to do that, to focus upon that right now, and to know that we don't have to get sick. We don't have to be afraid. How do we give up that fear is the question. And we really have to give it up by going within and really understanding what is of value and what's important in our lives. Really counting our blessings, being in a state of gratitude. It's so important. While we're in social isolation, we have the time to do this. We have the time to get introspective. We have the time to think about what our values are. And we have the time to spend learning new things and doing new things. We don't have to be just sitting moping around. There are wonderful things to do. Think of all those books that are sitting there that haven't been read yet. All of the chores that you meant to do that maybe haven't been done yet. The language that you meant to learn one day. Well, all of this stuff is available online right now. You can learn a new dance. You can learn how to exercise. You can learn yoga. We can learn so many things thanks to the blessing of the internet, instead of sometimes looking at it as a curse in our lives because it can be so all-consuming. This is a time that we can really do a lot to make our lives better through some of the things that it does have to offer. So I really suggest that we do this kind of thing. We really look at it and start getting into our personal power, recognizing that, fear is just an attitude. We don't have to live in that place, like Tom Costa said, when you're going through hell, don't stop. And for God's sake, don't build a condominium there. Let us not build a condominium in fear. Let's not stop in fear. Let's go past it. It's something that we really need to do. We need to be really positive right now. If we're going to stay healthy, we have to be positive. That's one of the most important things that we can do. We can look at our glass as half full or half empty. We can look at ourselves as a disease waiting to happen, or we can look at ourselves as perfect health in expression. And we are healthy beings. We understand the power in this. We understand the power of our thoughts. And we understand that this is a time when we must not slip into fear, when we must not slip into negativity. We need to be in a place where we really, really get the gist of this, get it deeply inside ourselves, spend time contemplating it, spend time thinking about it, knowing that this is not the end of anything. this is perhaps the beginning of a new way of looking at our lives, the beginning of a time of valuing all of the wonderful things that we do have, of sending our love and compassion to one another, of reaching out and helping other people. Such an important thing. And it's a time for self-love. That's an oft-used phrase, and it doesn't necessarily mean a lot to everybody. But it's not about being self-indulgent. It's about monitoring the time that we spend doing things, that rather than just being in some silence, being in some peace. That there's an expression that even a locomotive can only pull so many cars behind it. How many cars are we pulling? Let's take a look at that. Let's start looking at how we can lessen that busyness in our lives and take more time to just commune with Spirit, to commune with what is really important, to commune with God in our lives. As an author, Elizabeth Gilbert, said, run toward God like a man with his head on fire runs toward water. What a great time for us to be able to do this, to really go deeply into Spirit and to cultivate that spiritual nature that is within us, that we were born with. And it's a time to forgive. How long have we been carrying around resentment and anger and hostility in our heads, giving people free rent in our heads for things that we feel they did to us to harm us or to betray us? As Marianne Williamson said, we could forgive anybody if we knew what their lives had been like. If we could stand in their shoes and walk in their shoes, we could forgive them. The thing is, if we want to stay healthy, forgiveness is something that we really need to do. We can't just go around giving all this free rent out in our heads. We simply cannot do that any longer. And it's a matter of just doing it. When you're thinking about somebody who you need to forgive, then think about something that you love in your life or somebody that you love in your life and get into that feeling. And when you're feeling that feeling, then project it onto that person that you need to forgive. Refuse to carry it around with you any longer. It is simply something that will devastate your health. Fear can do that. Fear turns into stress, which weakens our immune systems. Lack of forgiveness weakens our immune systems. Negativity weakens our immune systems. Let us really get into this. This is the time, and we have the time to do it. We can't say that we don't any longer. This is a time when we can learn how to really meditate. If we're only paying lip service to it, this is the time we can do it. We've got lots of time, and we can't say we don't have the time, and we can stop saying that our minds are too busy. Our minds are busy, perhaps. But remember what Marianne Williamson said for the first 10 minutes in meditation, that she's hysterical, and then she slips into a quiet place. Carolyn Mace once said that she asked a class of hers how well they can meditate, and if they can meditate, to soft music and to wind chimes. And every single person in the room put up their hands and said that they could do that, no problem. And she said, well, that's not what it's all about. That's not going deeply. That's not the real connection with Spirit. It's a place to start, but it's not the place where we really need to go. She said, we need to be able to be in that peaceful, quiet, loving space in the midst of heavy traffic, noisy traffic, airplanes flying overhead, all kinds of noise around us. We need to be able to be in a place where we're not hearing those things, where we're just in total peace, in a total contemplative space. And that's easy for her to say, isn't it? But I thought about that, and I thought, I remember days in school when I had some pretty good teachers. They would be teaching things and my mind would drift off and I would be thinking about other things. I'd be daydreaming. I wouldn't be conscious of anything around me. Absolutely nothing, even though there was lots going on around me. And so maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to be daydreaming our way into meditation, daydreaming our way into a space where we can be in the cacophony of sound and can feel peace, perfect peace, and can feel that communion with God, that communion with the divine. There's nothing wrong with daydreaming our way into it until it becomes so easy that the moment that we close our eyes and take a deep breath, that we're in that space, or even if we have our eyes open and we take a deep breath, that we're in that space. Because that is a healing space. That is a safe space, and that's a place where we will know no fear. So let's work on that. We have the time. Everybody has the time right now because we have been confined to our homes, confined to barracks, so to speak. And there's lots that we can learn to do in the meantime. And prayer, let us not forget our prayers. Let us pray for one another. Let us pray for this world. Let us pray for this earth. And let us be grateful for all of the good things that we have in our lives right now. Be grateful for this beautiful place where we live. Be grateful that we don't have smog, and be grateful that people in other parts of the world are now starting to experience clear skies, blue skies, and clean air where their breath comes to them more easily. And if we're feeling some fear, I want to share with you the words of Emma Curtis Hopkins. And I was reminded of this past week by Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis, who mentioned this online. Emma Curtis Hopkins said, if you're in a place of fear, place of discontent, a place where you're feeling really down, then sit down and look at your feet, look at the floor, look at the ground, wherever you are. And feel it. Feel what it is you're feeling. Allow yourself to do that. And when you're really into it, then look up. Look up at a clear blue sky with those wonderful, fluffy, cumulus clouds floating around in it, and how beautiful it is. And she said 80% of the people, Emma Curtis Hopkins said, 80% of the people who do this will immediately feel uplifted and will feel better because of it. Now, if it's a cloudy, rainy day, I'm sure you can download a picture of a clear blue sky with fluffy white clouds in it, and you can maybe put that on your ceiling and look up at it, and it'll make you feel better. I've tried it. It works. It's wonderful. If it works for 80% of the people, the chances are really good that it's going to work for you. And if you're feeling fearful, and sometimes we do, and right now is a time when a lot of people are. Remember the words, I am not afraid of my fear. I am not afraid of my fear. I am not afraid of my fear. Make that your mantra. Say it over and over and over again until you feel that peace welling up inside you. I've used that successfully in the past when I've had those kinds of things happen to me. Those are tools that we can use, but the best tool of all that we can use is to remember the truth of who we are, to remember that we have this power and presence within us, to remember that we are spirit having a human experience, to remember that we are never separate from spirit, we are never separated from God. God is with us every moment of every day, never steps aside. And when we remember this, and when we stay in a place of great peace, we are promoting our own good health, and we're keeping the rest of the world healthy as well. Because what we're thinking about is going out there into the ethers. What we're thinking about is taking form. It's taking form in the invisible. So let us plant positive, healthy, loving thoughts out there. Let us stay in touch with one another. Let us send our love to one another at this time. Let us remember how beautiful it is to all be together, and be grateful for this technology that helps to bring us together in some way on this day. I'm grateful for that. And I'd like to share with you a poem that I had stored on my computer. I don't know when I put it, but it was probably 20 years ago. But as I read it the other day, I thought, I have to share this with each one of you. It's so beautiful. And it's written by James Dillett Freeman. In the absolute stillness beyond the self, you know me as I am. But then, only as a feeling and a faith. I am in you and you are in me. Even in your fear, I am there. Even in your pain, I am there. I am the light by which you see. I am the voice that speaks through you. I am the power at work in your hands. Even when it may seem to you that it is not, good is there, for I am there. For only in your mind can you feel separate from me. Let us think on these words We are never separate from God. And when we do that, we are on the road to being free from fear. I bless you at this time. I know that each of us has the power within us to overcome any of these obstacles. I send you my love. I send you blessings. And so it is. And this is the time in our service when we typically take up an offering. Our expenses do not stop because our doors are not open right now. And so I invite you to go to the top of this page if you're on our website and to click on the donate button and to make a donation there today. Or alternatively, to send a check to our treasurer, Lillian Slanina, or to send an e-transfer, whatever works best for you. And we'll be sure that we're together again in the same place when all of this is overcome. And if you're watching this on Facebook, then if you go to our website, cslvictoria.org, you will find the donate button there at the top of the home page. We really appreciate everything that you can do at this time and all that you do to keep us alive and thriving and to keep yourselves alive and thriving. You're in my prayers every day. You're in my thoughts. You're in my meditations. And I know that we will get through all of this together because it's love that holds us together. I love you all, and I send you great blessings on this day. And so it is. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.